Welcome to the video. We are going back to Elizabeth Holmes. Elizabeth and the government have been going back and forth in regards to this whole flight issue. Was she fleeing to Mexico? There were plane tickets. The government is saying, hey, we understand that she wants to be released while her appeal is working its way through the process. But the government says no, because guess what? She tried to flee to Mexico. Yeah.
Now, to bring you up to speed, here's an excerpt from a previous video I did where the government alleged that Elizabeth and her partner Billy were trying to flee to Mexico.
Contrary to defendants' assertion that she has a flawless record with U.S. pretrial services and claim that no evidence suggests she will flee while she pursues her appeal, the incentive to flee has never been higher. As an initial matter, defendant's record with pretrial services and the court does not account for her attempt to flee the country shortly after she was convicted. The government became aware on January 23, 2022, that defendant Holmes booked an international flight to Mexico, departing on January 26, 2022, without a scheduled return trip. Only after the government raised this unauthorized flight with defense counsel was the trip canceled. Like they didn't even think to go ahead and cancel that. Why? Why? On information belief, defendant's partner, William Evans, left on the scheduled date with a one-way ticket and did not return until approximately 6 weeks later, returning from a different continent. The government anticipates defendant will note in reply that she did not, in fact, leave the country as scheduled, but it is difficult to know with certainty what defendant would have done had the government not intervened. So you can surely understand the government's concern here. It's wait a second. You got this flight to Mexico with your partner. So now it looks like, your family has gathered up to go out of the country. And it's only a one-way ticket.
Now, let's go ahead and jump into what Billy Evans has to say in response to the government claiming that they were fleeing. He brings the actual receipts, you guys.
I'm going to pull up the document here. Ms. Holmes' motion to strike factual misrepresentations and strike or seal confidential information. But this also includes Billy Evans, her partner, stepping in and saying she was not trying to flee to Mexico. The first page that I'm going to go to is the section that talks mostly about him. Whoops. Let's see. Not that section. Let's scroll down a little bit further to this. He talks about inaccurate statements of fact regarding his travel. We're going to go through this, and then we're actually going to look at his declaration that is attached to this document as an exhibit. So it says here, presumably, well, first of all, inaccurate statements of fact regarding Mr. Evans' travel. Presumably, to support its flight allegation, the government also presents inaccurate statements of fact about Mr. Evans' travel. The government's brief states that Mr. Evans left for Mexico on the planned date, January 26, 2022, but did not return until 6 weeks later from a different continent. You guys, if you have not seen my video on this, definitely go back and look at that video, because that is precisely what the government said. Said he came back from Africa. But the government's factual representations about Mr. Evans' travel are simply untrue. 4 days after leaving for Mexico, Mr. Evans returned to the United States through Tijuana on January 30th, 2022. Declaration of William Evans is attached to Exhibit 1. He was at home in Woodside, California by February 2nd, 2022. On February 20th, 2022, he flew from San Francisco to South Africa by United. They have the flights listed. You guys, I said this in my last video. I said this. If Holmes has the documentation, prove it with the flight records. I would have shown tickets and everything. And here is exactly what she is doing in this response. She is presenting the flight information. This is documentation. They can go back and double check this. On February 20th, 2022. He flew from San Francisco to South Africa by United flights UA2218 and UA1122. These flights were part of a round trip booking by which he returned. Mr. Evans also took domestic flights between San Francisco and Salt Lake City during February 2022. During the time period, the government falsely asserts he was abroad. Counsel for Ms. Holmes brought these inaccuracies to the government's attention by email on January 20th, 2023, and requested the government correct them. As of this filing, the government has neither responded nor corrected the inaccuracies. Now, this is a big deal because not only did they share this information with them so that the government then had an opportunity to look at it and say, hey, wait, maybe we have a mistake here because we did put in our documents that he left on this date and that he did not come back until how many weeks later? And he was coming from a wholly different continent. And that is what they were alleging before. So it's very interesting that they have now told us that they've shared this with the government, and the government is like crickets over there, crickets over there. Let's go to Billy Holmes' declaration that is attached to this that has even a little bit more information in it, because we want to see exactly what he had to say about this. And these are all emails. You guys, that's going to be in an entirely different video because there's information about that too, about this back and forth regarding not just the flight, but also some of the email information that they are trying to strike. Okay, so here we have declaration of William B. Evans, and this is his response to this whole thing where the government is saying, hey, he flew off and didn't come back. And so that's some sort of indication that she was going to fly off too, and that she was some sort of flight risk. Declaration of William B. Evans. I, William B. Evans, declare as follows. I am the fiance and partner of Elizabeth Holmes. On January 30th, 2022, I returned from Mexico to the United States through Tijuana. Attached as Exhibit 1 is a true and correct copy of my receipt from the toll bridge. He brought the receipts. After spending a couple of days in San Diego, I drove home to Woodside, California. Attached as Exhibit 2 is a true and correct copy of a photograph of me playing with my son on the floor of our then residence on February 2nd, 2022, as well as a screenshot of the properties of that photograph. And we're going to have to go to that. That's Exhibit 2. I remained in the United States until February 20th, 2022. I took multiple domestic commercial flights between February 2nd and February 20th, 2022, including between San Francisco and Salt Lake City. For example, attached as Exhibit 3 is a true and correct copy of my itinerary for flights between San Francisco and Salt Lake City, dated February 13th, 2022 and February 16th, 2022. I flew to South Africa on February 20th, 2022 by way of a round trip commercial flight booked on United Airlines. How did the government mess this up? In particular, I flew from San Francisco to Newark via UA2218 and then from Newark to Cape Town, South Africa via UA1122. Attached as Exhibit 4 is a true and correct copy of my electronic ticket. I returned to the United States by way of the flights identified in Exhibit 4. Certain personal and financial identifying information has been redacted from Exhibits 1, 3, and 4. Additionally, my son's face has been redacted from Exhibit 2. If the court needs any of these items without redaction, I can provide them. I have not received any inquiries from the prosecutors in this case regarding my international travel. I declare under penalty of perjury under the laws of the United States that the foregoing is true and correct to the best of my knowledge. Now, like I said, there are some emails that go back and forth. I'm going to cover those in another video because I really wanted to focus on what Billy Evans was saying here, because it was almost like they came after him and he sort of said, hey, you know, I get it. You're trying to say she was a flight risk, but here's all my documentation. Here's all my proof, because you put my name in there and said I didn't come back until X day and I came back from a different continent, a different country on that continent. And I'm going to correct that because you are wholly inaccurate about the information that you shared. I'm feeling like he might have felt some kind of way about this. You let me know, but I'm thinking he and the attorneys went all in on this. American Express Gold Card, William Evans. Look at that. Tijuana will appear on your February 24th statement, original amount. So this is the toll and bridge fee that he was discussing, $26.03. I tell you, sometimes it's nice to have those credit card records to stick up for you. And this is the picture that he was talking about. Okay. So, but we know that the picture by itself is not enough, right? So he then added the properties that go along with that. And it says their date taken February 2nd, 2022. And of course, you can get all the camera information in that too now. All right. So then in Exhibit 3, he has his itinerary here, your flight receipt, Delta Airlines. And you know how it is. They include all of that other stuff in the itinerary. So we get, which flight he was on when he departed from San Francisco and arrived in Salt Lake City, when he departed from Salt Lake City and arrived back in San Francisco. So there's all of that there. There's his seat where he sat on the plane. And then there is the flight receipt, ticket number, and method of payment and the amount there. All of the fees associated with it, the taxes and the charges. He had carry-on fees, all these other fees, everything listed there. And that's the itinerary for Delta. Then we have Exhibit 4, which was the UA United Airlines flight. Confirmation there. All of this stuff is easily checked with these airlines, when he left. Okay. 10:35 a.m. San Francisco, flew to Newark, New Jersey. Flight 2, Sunday, February 20th. You guys, it's all right here. Everything's listed, all of his flights. And then his flight back from Newark to San Francisco there on March 4th. So again, you've got all of the fees and the total cost there, method of payment, where he's sitting, all of these other charges. And then, yeah, we can see how much even his mileage that he's accruing. So he's got everything there to back this up. Let's see if there's anything else attached to this. I don't think so. I think this has to do with the strike piece. So yeah, that he brought the receipts. I mean, literally brought the receipts. And this, like I said, was something that I mentioned in the video. And you can tell, here's the thing, you can tell that the Holmes team did not expect for the government to bring this up. Apparently, there had been some emails back and forth, and the Holmes team was under the impression that everything was good to go. So for them to get caught off guard, because otherwise, if they thought this was an issue, they already had, you already got all these receipts. So if the Holmes team had thought this was an issue, they would have included it when they first filed asking to stay home while her appeal is out there. Apparently, they didn't think this was an issue. So they got blindsided by the government when the government came back and sort of said, hey, no, we think she's a flight risk, among other things. And they had other reasons for thinking why she shouldn't be out on appeal. But this was one of them. Okay, so they blindsided the Holmes team with this after this sort of previous understanding that there wasn't anything else needed. And remember, the government had asked about this a long time ago. So it's not like this was, I'm sorry, I don't mean to laugh. It's not really funny, but it just, if you think something's taken care of and the other side then comes forward with this allegation out of the blue when you've had conversations about this in the past and it didn't seem to be an issue. You think it's all wrapped up and done. So I think they were blindsided. I think that's sort of why they came back with all of this and said, hey, the government knows that this was not the case. And on top of that, the government's just wrong with the facts that they put in there, because that is not what happened. Here are all of the places that I went. Here are the tickets that show that I am right and you are wrong. Hopefully you are now up to speed on the whole fleeing fiasco, breaking down the dates and understanding who was going when and where and what the government did and did not do. And I'm going to have some more videos on this because there are other pieces to that. If you like the video, go ahead and give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe. Peace.